before the mind. The war's coming forth, never with the disguise. Another A-pop for you who really wants it. Shroud medals in my vocabulary. Rolling with the punches, I'm roping and jumping. Dealing with the problems, I got to be coping. Making it fit, and I click just like a Lego. I'll be Casio, but you can be tackled from the FBI to the CIA. I'm glittering out the path from here to LA. I be from C-Town, kicking the roof down, ripping up the mic and way past sundown.
A bittersweet end to the minor league baseball season. Unfortunately, the Columbus Clippers could not get it done. But my friends, minor league baseball has come to a close across the country now. And this show going to be recapping the Columbus Clippers. We're going to be talking about some guard ball today too. Next show will be big as far as sort of wrapping up the AAA, or not the AAA stuff. Well, yes, the AAA stuff, but all the minor league stuff. But we got quite a bit to talk about today. My name is Nate Bope. As always with me is Tavin McCauley. And how are we doing on this fine Monday? A little bit earlier of a start time this week, I think, because I know you got somewhere to be. But how was the weekend?
Good. Michigan with a big win, so that's always great. But yeah, football's treating well, but getting to the end of baseball, which sucks. So
yeah, I mean, hey, AAA, AA, High A, those playoffs may be over, my friend. But we got some guard ball to talk about today.
Oh yeah, it's gonna be great. That's been obviously looking forward to that since March. So
yeah, I mean that's. I'll be honest, I wasn't too hopeful for playoff guard ball this year. I was coming in just thinking, and especially after that injury to Bieber, I just wasn't really feeling it after the team that we saw last year. But they kept put together a great first half, kept the ball rolling, and we're here talking about the postseason. But, sir, we do have to talk about the Columbus Clippers first because they were in the AAA International League Championship Series, and they were able to come out of the gates and get a huge 3-2 win, a back-and-forth affair. The bats were flying everywhere. Not many runs were coming across, but, I mean, the Clippers able to get it done there in that game. It was a while ago at this point. It would have been almost a week ago now, so try to jog your memory here, friends. But, I mean, let's go ahead and go to the bottom of when did they score the run? Okay, yeah, I see. So Arias made it 3-1 in the top of the 8th, and then Omaha just had plenty of chances to be able to come through and get that one done. The bottom of the 8th, there was a runner on second and third. Nick Pratto ended up flying out, and that dramatically shrunk Omaha's chances to be able to win that game there. But one out single there by Cam Devaney put runners on first and third. I think Devaney would later steal. John Rave ended up walking. Nate Eaton walked ended up bringing home the run, and that was all with one out. But you get a strikeout and a ground out there to end that game. I mean, Omaha's win probability was at 53%. At the end of the bottom of the 8th, it was 7.1%. It jumped all the way to 53% after Nate Eaton's walk. That walked a run home. It was 3-2 Columbus, but the bullpen was able to get it done. And I will tell you, I believe it was Enright that was able to save that game. That came in there late.
It was.
It was. Yep, it was Enright there late again. Just didn't have the best start to the inning, but he was really able to come through, get it done late, and Columbus was there able to win game 1. So without moving forward there, Tavin, thoughts on game 1 of the Clipper Storm Chaser series?
Yeah, Enright came in a huge spot. I believe it was bases loaded, 2 outs, and it went down to a 3-2 count. So quite literally the most important pitch of the ball game, and he got out of it and obviously secured the win for the Clippers in that one. Doug Nikhazy, I said it last week, he was going to be dealing, and he was absolutely on fire in game 1. He had 10 strikeouts, only walked 3 guys, only gave up 1 run through 5 2/3 innings pitched, and only 4 hits. So obviously Nikhazy was rolling, and I thought that was going to be a huge part in Columbus getting that game 1. Guys like Tyler Freeman, he had a big game. He had 2 hits on the night. Jonathan Rodriguez, another 2-hit guy. Gabriel Arias obviously coming in a huge spot. And then Mike Caprice, who was just on fire all series. We're going to get into what he did a little bit later in game 2 and 3. But, I mean, he even recorded a hit in this one. So just every kind of cylinder was going for the Clippers, and they really closed out a tough one.
Well, they really had to make game 2 dramatic, didn't they? And to your point, Mike Capri starting off the score in there with a home run. Jonathan Rodriguez, or that was in the top of the second for Mike Caprice. Jonathan Rodriguez, who tore up AAA this year. And we'll talk about if he makes that 26 playoff man roster for the Guardians here a little bit later. We'll get some thoughts on that. He was able to hit a home run there as well. Top of the fourth, bottom of the fifth. John Rave ends up grounding into a double play, but there were runners on first and third. Was able to get that run from third home. It was Ryan Fitzgerald. So 2-1 Columbus heading into the sixth inning, where Tyler Freeman gives the Clippers a 3-1 lead. And hey, things are looking good. The pitchers are pitching well. I mean, we talked about it in our preview. This was an Omaha lineup that absolutely slugs. You never know who's going to do it. In this game, it was Nate Eaton. Bottom of the eighth on a 1-1 count with one out, runner on first. Home run on a deep fly ball to left center field. John Rave was the runner. Omaha ties the game up, and we go to the bottom of the ninth. There was a runner on first base. It was, I don't believe it was Tyler Tolbert, I do believe, was on first. And a little bit of a weird, unconventional double play because there was a bunt pop up from Nick Pratto, who was at the plate. Dom Nunez, who was playing catcher, was able to make the play and doubled up Tyler Tolbert there at first base. Mike Capri is able to put him away. And so that, for all intents and purposes, sent us, I should say, into extra innings, top of the 10th. Nothing really happened. The Guardians had their chances. I mean, yeah, you did have Jonathan Rodriguez grounding out that held the runner. There was a fly ball there, but I mean, an absolutely phenomenal play from the right fielder and Tyler Gentry, because he gunned Tyler Freeman out. I could not believe that throw. That was an unbelievable throw. And honestly, Freeman out kind of by a mile there on that play. It was, again, a really shallow fly ball. Again, you figured that it was going to get Tyler Freeman home with some of the speed on his base, or some of his speed that he has on the base pass. Nope. Really good throw there by Tyler Gentry in right field to be able to gun him out at home. For all intents and purposes, that did save the game, but Omaha couldn't get anything going in the bottom of the 10th, even though they had runners on second and third with one out on a 2-1 count. John Rave reaches on a fielder's choice, but pitcher Anthony Gose, I think he laid the bunt down too, if I'm not mistaken. Anthony Gose, who was pitching at the time, heads up play, flips it to Dom Nunez. I actually think it deflected off of Anthony Gose. It might not have been a bunt. I might be misremembering some things, but there was a weird play. At least it's listed weird here in the stats. And again, memory not too sharp, but basically play at home plate. You had to get the tag. Dom Nunez was able to apply it. That saved the game for Columbus, prevented the walk-off, and they lived to see the top of the 11th inning, where after a bunch of series of events, runners on first and third, 2 outs, Juan Brito comes up, first pitch at the at-bat, a shot into center field, giving Columbus the lead. But unfortunately, Brian O'Keefe came through for the Storm Chasers. He singled on a ground ball to the left fielder. Nate Eaton was able to come home easily there from third. From second, my apologies. Drew Walters was able to get it to third. And then 1 second, because it kind of cut me off here. It was just a simple sacrifice fly, which won the game there for the Storm Chasers. So sacrifice fly, one of the most anticlimactic walk-offs you could have. But, I mean, lot to unpack there from a very busy game, too.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, they out-hit the Storm Chasers 12-5, which is an interesting kind of stat because obviously the score didn't really reflect that. Kind of backtracking also, we forgot to touch on Chase DeLauder was in that game 1 lineup, which we did not
we were
expect.
surprised at that.
Which,
yeah,
I mean, it was all the way from last week, so I totally forgot about it when we were going through game 1, but I kind of texted you once we kind of saw the lineup, and I was like, I don't really know how he's off the IR, but yeah, back into game 2, I mean, Jonathan Rodriguez too, Tyler Freeman, they were really the vocal point in the Clippers offensive side. Same with Juan Brito. He had 6 at-bats, had 2 hits, so solid outing from them. And then Miles Straw found something at the plate too. He had 2 hits. So,
short stint in Cleveland while Stephen Kwan was on the IL. They sent him back down to Columbus for the playoff series, and I mean, showed his worth.
But I mean, it was really the fact that the Storm Chasers were able to hit out of the hole that they kind of created for themselves. Gillespie went 5 innings, and I think he pitched a good game. Only gave up 1 run, 3 hits, struck out 7 batters. Tanner Burns, he had another great outing, 1 inning scoreless for him. Same with Andrew. I want to say it is Myasic. It's a tough name. But he struck out 2 guys too. James Karinchak struggled a little bit. He gave up 2. Both runs were unearned in the stat category, which Karinchak's a dude who I really love, just the way he plays with intensity, but he hasn't been able to really figure it out. And then it seems like the curse of Anthony Gose kind of caught on to Columbus, where he walked 4 guys, gave up 2 runs, and he picked up the loss. So Gose, a guy who really has been just struggling in the major leagues, been DFA'd, it seems now 100 times, and is accepted his outright to Columbus every single time. Which we obviously expect. I don't really see another team picking him up, but again, I think it really came down to Ghost just not being able to pull this one out. If you score 4 runs, it's not really a ton, but it should be enough, especially with that pitching staff, to get the job done.
Kind of reminded me of a Guardians Tigers game too, where they put a lot of runners on base. I mean, with 12 hits, you're looking to score 6, 7, maybe 8 runs, because I mean, pitchers are, good for a reason. They play professional baseball for a reason. They're going to get themselves out of jams sometimes, but when you put that many guys on base, especially in some crucial situations like down the stretch, and some phenomenal defense from Omaha helped this out as well, you're looking to put a little bit more than 4 runs up there on the board. Although, again, credit to Omaha, and again, the bullpen didn't hold up their end of the bargain. And speaking of which, that's just kind of the story of the game there in game 3 as well. Now, I think it was Ryan Webb that was supposed to go. He was named the starter for game 3, and I think a last minute, from everything I understand, a healthy scratch. I don't know if there was anything going on with Ryan Webb, or if he had something with his arm, or maybe another injury that we're just not aware of, but he was scratched from the start, and it just turned into a bullpen game. You had, again, really tough name to pronounce, and I'll apologize in advance for it, but I'll just go with your pronunciation there for right now. Myasic pitched 2/3, and then Hanner came in for a third to start out the game, and then Tristan McKenzie came into the game, which I don't understand at all.
No.
I just don't. In a playoff situation,
especially if you wanted to go with a veteran, Logan Allen, you would have thought might have been the better choice.
Well, and even he struggled too. But when you throw Tristan McKenzie in a playoff scenario, I mean, the Storm Chasers had the early lead there. After 1 inning, they were able to pick up the run in the first inning there of that game. I mean, Jonathan Rodriguez singled on a line drive, which brought Juan Brito home. It was a very productive top of the first inning. Whenever you get a run in the top of the first, that helps you set the tone, especially on the road against the team in Omaha that, again, really, really good. But going into the 5th inning, the game was tied. Columbus couldn't get anything going. And then things just started to really break down for Tristan McKenzie there in that, not necessarily for Tristan McKenzie. It broke down for him in the 2nd and 3rd inning, where he let runs up. But you want to talk about the 2 guys that really just kind of broke down here. I mean, Will Dion, who we spoke on being really, really good. And then Strzelecki, I probably am butchering that last name as well, but in only 1/3 innings, only recording 1 out, he gave up 3 hits and a couple of runs there as well. And I mean, give a lot of credit to this Omaha bullpen there as well. Guys like Murdoch, who ended up coming in to get the win, Ballin, Audavia, they pitched some really, really good baseball, didn't allow the Clippers offense to do much. And that's why the Storm Chasers ended up going to that AAA playoff, or the AAA championship game, where they did lose to the Sugarland Space Cowboys, widely considered one of the best names in minor league baseball. And I mean, that Sugarland team was just a absolutely phenomenal team this year. I think we were talking about it literally right before we went on air, and I'll try to remember off the top of my head, like 93-56 this year overall. Dominant team. I mean, but the Clippers couldn't get the amount of offense they wanted to get going. Definitely could have pushed home more runs through any game there, especially game 2 and game 3. But especially in game 3, the back end of the bullpen just didn't have it, the guys they pitched. And they pitched a lot of their better guys at the beginning of that game, where they used them in games 1 and 2, couldn't really use them in game 3.
Yeah, I mean, it was a story of just Columbus couldn't drive them in. I mean, this game, they had 10 hits, and so did Omaha. It was just Omaha was able to capitalize when they had runners in scoring position, and Columbus really wasn't. My guy Brian Lavastida, he came through with 2 big hits in this series. Tyler Freeman, he really carried his weight. Same with Miles Straw throughout this entire series, and I think that's kind of the veteran presence that they brought to this Columbus team, and that's the reason why. And then Micah Pries, who's just, it seems like he's missed their clutch when it matters. I mean, going back to last year or 2 years ago specifically in Akron, I mean, the clip is
Had another homer in this one. Yeah.
Yeah, and back-to-back home runs, which kind of reminds me of not really the same thing, but the back-to-back walk-offs he had in Akron in 22, which is literally the first clip in our intro video with Reynel Delgado kind of dousing it with water. So he obviously played a huge role in this game, but it was the bullpen that kind of just, fell apart, and a big hand in that was Tristan McKenzie, who gave up 3 runs. Will Dion, he would also give up 2. Strzelecki would also give up 2. So there was kind of a period in the middle or earlier half in that game where it just kind of fell apart. Enright came through at the end. He had 3 strikeouts or 2 and 1/3 innings pitched. But again, obviously you dig yourself that big of a hole, Enright's not really going to save you. So.
Yeah, and you hammered it home. The biggest point of emphasis for the Clippers, if there were to be more baseball games played, and obviously there aren't, the season's over after that playoff loss, you got to drive in the runs when you get them on base. I mean, that was the difference maker, right? Omaha only had 5 hits in that game, where in game 2, it was where the Clippers had 12. Clippers couldn't drive in their runs. Omaha could, and also Omaha took advantage of some Columbus pitching that just overall wasn't that great. Again, some walks and other things that happened there in the late stages of that one as well. But that was the big difference maker there in that series. Omaha drove home the runners when they got on base. Columbus didn't. For sure.
I don't know. I would have liked to see Ryan Webb a lot, and I 100%.
Again,
I think it was something.
we have no idea, nor will we possibly ever know why Ryan Webb got scratched.
So I really think it was like a late minute scratch, because otherwise I don't see why McKenzie wouldn't have started, and they would have went with Myasik and Hanner for that first inning. So I think it was a later, might have been right before the game scratch, and I don't know. They maybe let the first inning McKenzie get loose
once the Storm Chaser lineup came out, because I mean it was Rave, Eaton, Waters, O'Keefe, basically nothing that you hadn't seen basically all series long. So I wonder if they were just looking at Ryan Webb and thinking, hey, maybe this isn't a good matchup for you. We're going to kind of go to a bullpen game. Maybe something was going on with Ryan Webb, but I think even going back to Akron and during his time in Columbus this year, I don't think there were many injury problems for Ryan Webb this year. So
there wasn't all year, but I mean, I find it hard to believe that they would just kind of keep him out, especially in the bull. I think if they didn't like the matchup a lot, they would have at least put him in as a bullpen guy for sure. Right. I mean, I think we would have saw at least some action out of him, maybe not as a starter. I think it just kind of came down. Maybe, I mean, I have no clue, but I think it just came down to he wasn't ready to go or something to that nature.
Yeah, maybe, possibly. He could have. And didn't he pitch the season finale there too? So he would have pitched on Sunday, ask him to pitch Thursday. That's not a crazy turnaround. But again, maybe the Clippers were erring on the side of caution there a little bit, which It's the playoffs. I don't know why you do err on the side of caution. Right. You pitch the guy. But again, something that we're not going to speculate on anymore, and we don't know. But that does bring a close to the AAA season. Again, the Sugarland Space Cowboys are your AAA champions. I think Erie won AA. Of course, Lake County won, or the AA that we, of course, are talking about in the Eastern League. Obviously, Lake County. So we got 1 of 3, and I'll take that. I'll take 1 of 3. I'll take a championship.
I'm still hurting over the Ducks loss, but yeah, for sure, 1 of 3.
Something that I expected. It didn't hurt me probably as much as it hurts you, but yeah, 1 of 3, not too bad, not too shabby. I'll take it. At the end of the day, I'll take it. Would have liked 3 of 3 though. That would have been awesome. Hey, you for the most part, I know AAA hasn't announced their list yet, but for the most part, we have single A, high A, and double A all-stars that have come out so far. So obviously, I think you have that list in front of you. You had prepared that. So we'll start down at single A Lynchburg. We'll go up through high A Lake County and then go to double A Akron. So start in Lynchburg, who made the all-star team?
So for Lynchburg, we had 2 guys make the all-star team. It was Esteban Gonzalez and Jason Churio were both Carolina League all-stars. And Churio,
of course,
a guy who we obviously knew was going to make that list. But Gonzalez, another guy who had a great year, and it's good to see that he was on that list too.
Yeah, and Esteban Gonzalez, a guy that I don't think we've talked about a whole lot on podcasts, but he is someone there that was a big driving force there in Lynchburg, put up some really good numbers, and definitely a guy that I'm actually going to look up his stats here just because I want to.
For sure, and he wasn't a highly rated prospect by any means, so
Right.
obviously not really a guy that, unless you're looking at his numbers, you're really going to touch on.
And he did play some games in Lake County there as well. He did end up moving up to the high A ranks, but through his time in Lynchburg, which was what made him an all-star, 76 hits, had 6 home runs, 17 doubles, and 6 triples through 69 games. I mean, that's 6 triples is quite impressive. 287 batting average, 812 OPS. 464 slugging, stole 37 bases in Lynchburg.
Wow.
The numbers do deteriorate a little bit once he goes up to Lake County, but I mean, probably a guy you're going to see start in Lake County next year. So good for Gonzalez.
Yeah, crazy. We didn't really see a lot of playoff action out of him, but obviously younger guy. You want to give your veteran some more time. He's been there all year.
He's only 21. Outfielder, by the way, for those of you wondering, outfielder Esteban Gonzalez. Okay, high A. I think we know one of them. It's CJ Kafis.
Shockingly, no.
Did he make it in Akron?
No, which is insane. Yeah.
Wow.
One of the guys is the Midwest MVP too. Cooper Engel got All-Star honor and MVP. Much deserved.
Engel, baby. Yeah, I mean, you hammered it home. Yeah, you hammered it home pretty much all year. You just keep saying it. Hitting 300 as a catcher is simply insane. And Cooper Engel was the most valuable piece to that team throughout the first half. I mean, we could argue CJ Kavas. We could argue Travis Bazzana once he came in there. But Cooper Engel, man, the heart and soul of that team, the quarterback behind home plate, playing catcher, directing the defense around, being able to call the pitches and know what he wants. And then on top of that, doing what he did defensively, doing what he did at the plate in Lake County, hit over 300 when he went to Akron. That success only continued for him. I mean, Cooper Engel, maybe if everything turns out right, we could see him start in Akron and maybe even get to Columbus by season's end next year. Maybe a shot with the big league club.
He has the best bat out of any catcher that obviously I've seen in the minor leagues.
Maybe the best catcher in the system, including major leagues.
Yeah,
maybe
100%. I mean, you hit 300 as a catcher. That's just unheard of. But going through the rest of the list, you have Angel. I'm gonna butcher this till forever. Is it Hanau? I think it's Hanau.
Yeah, Hanau.
So obviously
we'll go with it until we're corrected.
Right. Matt Wilkinson, another dude who's just been on fire since he got there.
We know about those names
throughout the playoffs, and a guy who the reason why they won the championship. And Austin Peterson, your guy, Midwest League All-Star.
Maybe that was the name I was thinking of. I knew there was one guy that started in Lake County that was in Akron that ended up getting a All-Star honor. But hey, Cooper Engel MVP. There we go. All right, Akron time. Who made it from the Ducks?
I can easily think of 5 guys that were snubbed, but Andrew Walters, which is weird because he was only there for like a month. Obviously, insane month off the charts.
I feel like
he gave up a run while he was in Akron.
So I feel like now someone in the chat can correct me if I'm wrong. I don't even know if you know this. If you do, props to you, because I definitely don't. I think they named them an all-star where they were for the most part. Now, I think the exceptions might be Paul Skeens, because I think he was an MLB all-star, even though he started in Double-A this year.
Are you saying where they've started or played more time at?
Where they've started at.
Okay, then it would be Walters. And then if they go by that, then it's definitely much deserved, 100%. I mean, the dude in his first year of pro ball got to the major leagues. Just insane season from Walters. And then Parker Messick, who's been great for the Ducks all year. No shade to Messick at all because he should be an all-star 100%.
Here we go. I
dude's
think
numbers are
everyone knows what's
insane.
coming.
But where is your
Prepare yourselves,
Eastern
people.
League ERA leader, Aaron Davenport? How do you not have the guy who leads every single pitching stat, not even your pitcher of the year, let alone your pitcher of the year, but not even an all-star? What are we doing?
Knew it was coming. You knew it was coming. You can't be
do you not have
surprised
this
by it,
guy?
ladies and gentlemen. Can't be surprised by
How
it.
do you not have him as an all-star? I mean, even you got to admit, Davenport should be an all-star. He leads the Eastern League in almost every category.
At that point, Peterson should be a AA all-star as well. But again, they probably cut the tie off there when they named him an all-star at Lake County. CJ Kayfish should have been a guy there. I don't know that
100%.
anyone with the CJ Kayfish should have been a guy on there. Maybe Bradley Hanner. I can't really think of any other bat that would be a super consistent.
No, I think it would just be Kayfish for the bats.
That's what I was thinking too.
You got a ton of names out there. Obviously, Davenport, Peterson, Messick, and I think since Peterson won it in high A, you're not going to give it to him in both.
Right.
But
yeah, that's
Messick, a guy who won.
Too.
So the only guy that's left off the list is Aaron Davenport, and I think I really like Bradley Hanner, and I think that he should have probably got it too. But the Eastern League, and I want to hammer it home again. I touched on it last week. The Eastern League Pitcher of the Year, Brandon Sproat, 7-4, 3.4 ERA, 131 strikeouts, and 1.11 WHIP through 116 innings. Davenport, same exact record, better ERA, more strikeouts. His ERA is 2.85, and his strikeouts are 135, and he only has a 0.07 lower WHIP than Sproat. So I really don't know where you're getting these numbers from, but just an absolute rob, just like Connor Cox. How Connor Cox should have been an all-star last season when he was consistently playing. Same thing with Davenport. Back-to-backs.
Well, Cox probably wasn't an all-star because of the bat last year. I can answer that right now.
Apologies. Not all-star for Cox. Gold glove for Cox last year. Yep. Not an all-star at all. Yeah. But 1,000% gold glove. I think it's the same thing here with Davenport. At least for an all-star, should have been pitcher of the year. He leads.
Davenport had a couple of starts down the stretch that just weren't his best. So maybe they were looking at that. Like, again, I don't know. I totally agree with your point there. I know I'm like making fun of you and everything, but
yeah.
No, I totally definitely agree. You can't give it to Peterson. You gave it to him in high A, so you cut the tie off there. Messick was really good for you, but Davenport overall was probably better. So
yeah, 100%.
Just go with that there. Hey, next week we will go through our own personal MVP Cy Young of probably not every single team, because I know that would take a while. Maybe every single team. Who knows? Maybe. But again, that's kind of hard to do when you have someone moving up and down and people moving up and down the organization all the time. So what we'll probably do is MVP, Cy Young, newcomer, most improved, all of that.
Everything from last time.
Yeah, so all of that next week at the finale. And we'll also tell you your AAA All-Stars there as well, as there are probably some Guardians. I'm especially thinking about Jonathan Rodriguez that are probably going to be named a AAA All-Star there at the end of this season. And who knows, maybe one of them AAA MVP, but we'll probably end up going to someone from either Omaha or Sugarland. Again, we'll wait and see that on next week. Hey, any questions from the chat about any of the affiliates here? We can talk about the Clippers, talk about the Ducks, talk about the Captains, talk about the Hillcats, because we got some guard ball to talk about, baby. It's October. It's playoff time.
Nothing from the chat yet. I think we go right in the guard ball, and if anything pops up, we come back to it.
Well, surely we'll have some questions about guard ball here as well, and that's might not be the last time I say that here. The Guardians are in the playoffs. I'm actually watching the Mets and Braves over on the TV over there. How about that game one, my friend? I don't know if you paid attention to it at all, but my goodness.
Crazy game one. And I mean, I like the Mets. I wanted them to get in, but I also really wanted to see a Frank meltdown. So
Frank's sanity is spared for one day. So let me ask you this. What do you think about sort of all the arguments being made out there? I mean, first of all, I think it is in part to say that from both of us and the rest of the team here at Believable media. If you or someone you know has been affected by the just terrible hurricane that has rolled through the eastern part, especially in Florida and down south in Georgia, like, our thoughts and condolences go out to you, because that's terrible. And I know the rain and the storms just kept moving on up the East Coast. And of course, we're going to sit here in a little bit and talk about how it affected the realm of baseball, but it affected so much more than baseball. It affected people's lives. So again, thoughts and condolences go out there to anyone suffering from Hurricane Helene. And if I mispronounce the hurricane's name, I apologize for that as well. But diving again, as I always like to say, no easy way to segue from that. Just felt like that needed to be said.
Yeah.
It also wasn't said at the top of the show. But again, it did affect baseball. And you kind of had to figure, like, hey, MLB probably knew that this was coming. And there have been a lot of pushback from both Diamondbacks fans, from fan bases of other teams, because again, the the wild card in general is going to end up starting tomorrow. So when you take a look here at this Braves and Mets series that's going on right now, I mean, the way that NL teams make the playoffs here was pretty simple. Like, the Diamondbacks needed these two teams to split. And if the the Diamondbacks need a sweep from someone, because if the Braves and Mets split, obviously the Mets just clinched their spot winning game 1 there. So they are in the wild card. Atlanta, if they win this game, they clinch their spot. But if the Mets, right now Atlanta up 1-0, if the Mets somehow win this game number 2, then it will be the Diamondbacks over the Braves that get in, because the Braves were not able to get that win. A lot of people saying that this is unfair to the Diamondbacks, like they should have done this a little bit better. I've heard other arguments that, like, well, the Diamondbacks had their 162, like they had their chance and they struggled down the stretch here. It puts a spotlight a little bit on Major League Baseball because it's earlier in the day. Then people can flip over and watch Monday Night Football tonight. I think baseball likes to have the spotlight on them. Do you think they could have planned this out a little bit better, though? Or what are your thoughts on this? I'm sure you've seen all the arguments and everything I've been talking about.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's fine. Right. I mean, Arizona got their 162 in, so I really don't know what they're kind of complaining over there about. But yeah, I like having the game at 1. Obviously, people can watch it. I don't really think anybody, unless you're a Mets or Braves fan, unless you're really into baseball, is going to watch that over some Monday Night Football. So I like having it earlier.
Yeah. No, I like having it earlier there as well. And again, like you said, the Diamondbacks got their 162. I mean, they should have just beaten the Padres and, taken care of business down the stretch if they wanted. But then there also is the conversation of, like, well, it's kind of unfair to the Diamondbacks because of a situation where, I mean, look, the Mets just went ahead and won game 1, and I'll go ahead and take a look at their lineup right now for game number 2 and just kind of help hammer home my point here. But the point coming into the day was that the team that ended up winning game 1 was going to kind of lax off a little bit and take a step back. And obviously the Diamondbacks won a sweep by someone. They didn't care who won game 1. All that matters is the same team that won game 1 won game 2. And I mean, you take a look at the Mets lineup here. I mean, Brandon Nimmo's in it, Pete Alonso's in it, sure, but there's no
Lindor.
There's no Frankie Lindor. They've taken a lot of their starters out. They've kind of rested them. They've sat them. They're pitching a guy that personally I've never heard of, and Joey Lucchesi. And this season he has a 10.38 ERA, just kind of getting him out of the way, more like a bullpen game for him. So, I mean, unfair to the Diamondbacks. Again, I think you had your 162. You had your chance. You should have gone through and just went ahead and clinched your playoff spot in the regular season instead of, again, you're not controlling your own destiny, to use a football term here, and it can apply to baseball as well, but more so said in the college football landscape of things. Like, the Diamondbacks didn't control their own destiny heading in here. And I mean, if you're the Mets and you just won game 1, you sit some of your starters there, that's good playoff strategy. Unfair to the Diamondbacks? Maybe, but they had their chances to get it done. That's my opinion.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, you play your 162, that should pretty much determine it. So,
yeah. Well, I'll tell you a team that didn't get their 162. It was the Cleveland Guardians, and we were robbed of Jose's 40-40 season, and I am pissed about it. I am not happy.
It was going to take a lot for him to get a home run in that last game, but I think it was possible for sure.
It was going to take a lot for them to even play that game. It rained all day yesterday up in Cleveland, all day. And thank you to the hurricane again for that.
even with the rain, it's like I don't know. I think it was better in the grand scheme of things to kind of rest Jose. I mean, obviously,
I will die on the hill that it would have happened if the game would have been played. So there you go. Jose Ramirez, put him in the 40-40 club.
maybe,
He didn't get
but
there. He was actually even one home run and one double away from 40-40-40. And who knows, maybe he does that in the first game of the playoffs. Maybe he hits a double and home run in the first game against
hopefully.
either the Astros or Tigers. And what I'd like to do here is go through and just take a little preview, maybe even make a little World Series prediction. I don't know. That sounds like it would be fun here. We got, about 24 minutes before you got to get out of here?
Something like that.
Yeah, okay. So let's talk Guardians first, because obviously that's the team that we talk about. We talk about the prospect farm. We got to talk about the major league team there as well. Let's start out with the playoff roster. Who are the 13 bats and 13 pitchers that you're looking to have there? What is your sort of rotation look like? What are the guys that you want pitching in game 1, 2, 3, 4, 5?
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know about like the entire 13 guys, but rotation, I think it's Bibby's obviously your ace. He's been the ace all year. That's not going to change. You have Boyd, who's a veteran presence. I want him in game 2 out there. Lively's in game 3, and game 4 is where it kind of comes down to it. I mean, I've had conversations earlier in the week, and I've said it. I mean, you might not agree with what the guy might have done. I think he's innocent, but I think you should have still signed Trevor Bauer. I still think that there's a spot missing with Gavin Williams in that lineup that you can't really fill in the starting lineup. And I think Bauer would have gave you veteran presence. He's been with the club before. He knows some of the guys, and I think that would have been great. But in that 4 spot, it's between Williams or Cobb. And if Cobb's good to go, I think it's going to be Cobb because Williams has struggled all season long. I mean, what do you think they do in that 4 spot? Either Cobb or Williams?
Well, first off, I was looking at some other stuff, so I apologize. I didn't really hear what you had said, so you can sort of back me up on that if this is what you have. But I'm going Bibby.
Yep.
Game 1, especially if they happen to play the Tigers, you have to pitch him against Tariq Skubal because that is exactly who they are going to roll out there in a game 1 scenario to try to steal some momentum on the road. I think another guy that you have to start, obviously, is Matthew Boyd. He's been a guy that's been really good ever since coming back there. Ben Lively, I think, is a guy that you start there in game 3. And, I mean, in a playoff setting, I have a little bit more confidence in Gavin Williams than you might think. Like, I know he's really struggled this year, and I mean, you take a look at his previous 5 outings. He's allowed a run in every outing he's been in. His last one against St. Louis, I mean, overall wasn't too bad. 4 hits, 1 earned run, and 5 2/3. I mean, that's not terrible. You go back to his last win there against Kansas City, 7 innings, 1 hit, 1 earned run. I think just gave up a solo shot, and that was really the one mistake that he made. 2 walks. 6 strikeouts there in that one as well. Even in a game where he gave up 2 runs against the Twins, he still struck out 7. Really the one super duper bad outing that he had. I mean, the one against Tampa Bay was, pretty shaky, but you go back to the one there against the Los Angeles Dodgers where that's a blow-up start. 2/3 innings, 2 hits, walked 3 guys, gave up 5 earned runs. That was sort of the blow-up start from Gavin Williams. But, I mean, to your point, I mean, is it Williams? Is it Cobb? I mean, Cobb obviously not with the team right now. If he's healthy, he's going to be, I think, ready to go. But I would like you to see him to keep both on the playoff roster here because I also think that, I mean, it just kind of depends on what the rotation is, or not the rotation, the lineup that you're going to be facing. And I also think it depends if you're facing Houston or Detroit on which one would be a better matchup for him as well. Because Cobb, I think, has had more success with Detroit than Houston in his career, but I could be wrong on that. I could be very wrong.
I mean, you bring up a good point, and I have confidence in Gavin Williams, especially out of the bullpen against either teams that can string together a 1 to 2 solid innings. But I don't think he's I don't think he's a starter, in my opinion. But I have full faith in him to go out there and start a game against Detroit. I just don't think he can kind of hang and handle the top 8 to 6 teams in the league. And obviously Houston's one of those top teams, and Williams has kind of struggled against them.
No, yeah.
Obviously, you have the bullpen to back him up. Yeah. So
Just say, and I have a little more confidence. And again, that's all Gavin Williams has to do. You take a look at his past couple starts, as I've said. I mean, he's gone 5 2/3, 5 innings, 5 1/3. You take out the blow up start against the Dodgers, and he went 7 against Kansas City. I mean, 5 innings is all you need. You get this one into the 6th inning, and the Guardians have a lead. Let that bullpen take over. And I mean, since we're on the pitching side of things, let's talk about that bullpen now. Obviously, Clase, you can lock him in. I'd probably also keep Joey Cantillo on this playoff roster. You can maybe, if you want to have a bullpen game, use Williams for 3 innings, then Cantillo for 3 innings, then let that bullpen take over. So I would keep Cantillo on the roster. I'd keep Hunter Gaddis on this roster, Eli Morgan,
awesome.
Tim Herron, Cade Smith, Andrew Walters. I would not have Nick Sandlin anywhere near this playoff roster. No, thank you.
So I totally agree with Sandlin. He scares me, but I think Eli Morgan's even worse by far. I don't like, and I know a lot of people love Morgan. I think he's probably the worst guy in that entire bullpen. I think you can easily find 3 to 4 better arms in Columbus that are ready to go for a bullpen rule. I think every time Morgan gets in, I don't know, he just looks timid and just kind of gets rocked every time. So
the stats would disagree.
I know the stats would disagree. But if you look at just him when he goes into a clutch scenario, it doesn't really end well. I know the last 11 outings or innings, he's been scoreless or something crazy like that. So he's turned it on as of late. But I guarantee you, watch, rewind this when they put him into a playoff game and he gives up 1 to 2 runs in the inning that he goes in.
I have, and again, you can't really bank on what could happen. You kind of have to use your eyes and talk about, okay, well, this is what has happened so far. And what has happened is the fact that Eli Morgan has been probably one of the better arms out of the bullpen, at least in terms of ERA goes. He's got a 1.93 ERA on the season. He's been played in 32 games. But I mean, you look up and down this bullpen roster. I mean, honestly, Nick Sandlin, now that I'm looking at the stats, is really not as bad is really not as bad. Again, win loss, sure, whatever. He's got a 1.27 whip, 3.75 ERA, not but I mean, let's go through the 8 names in the bullpen there, shall we? So, or actually, let me just go through my 13 pitchers, because I think, again, 26-man playoff roster, you take 13 bats, you take 13 pitchers. That's just the way I see it. And with the bullpen the Guardians have, of course, you're going to take more pitchers. So right now, you got to take Bybee, you got to take Boyd, you got to take Lively, you got to take Williams. And probably Cantillo for that rotation. If Cobb is healthy, sure, maybe you put him in and a guy like Williams or Cantillo out. But those are the 5 for your rotation. Emmanuel Clase is obviously in there to be the closer, so there's 6. I like Tim Herron to stay there in that bullpen. I like Hunter Gaddis to stay there in that bullpen. I like Cade Smith, Andrew Walters to stay in that bullpen. So there's 10 right there. You got some other names to throw in there. I don't want really Pedro Avila on this roster because I think you could get some other guys like Cantillo in there. Tim Herron, how could I forget him? There's 11 there.
He's an interesting name. What's your opinion on Herron? Does he scare you as much as he scares me when he gets into games?
I don't really think so, no.
Really? All right.
I really don't think so.
Him and Sandlin are kind of like the 2 outside of Morgan. I don't feel as confident in Avila.
I feel pretty darn. I mean, first off, like, let's listen to. Oh, and by the way, Eric Sabrowski as well. You gotta put him on this roster. 8 games, hasn't given up anything yet. Keep him on this playoff roster, absolutely. You take a look at ERAs so far. I mean, Sabrowski, only 8 games played, so pretty small sample size. He's only pitched, I think, 12 2/3 innings, but man, he's only given up 6 hits, 19 Ks, 4 walks. Sabrowski's on this playoff roster for sure. You look at him. Walters hasn't given up jack anything either. He's been phenomenal. You got to keep those 2 guys. Clase, we know, is fantastic. He will get Cy Young votes. I don't think he'll win it, though. I think it'll be Tariq Skubal, Cade Smith, Tim Herron, Eli Morgan is there as well. I mean, probably the 13th pitcher, because now you include Sabrowski in there, probably Cobb. You probably throw Cobb in there, and again, you have Cantillo for some relief, but there's your 13 pitchers to me. Let's switch over to the offensive side of things now, because Well, actually, let's not. Let's stick with the bullpen for a minute because, again, no matter what the starting rotation is, Bybee is going to be your quote-unquote ace, and I'm not ready to call Bybee a full-time ace yet. I just don't think he's shown that consistency.
I think with a healthy lineup, he is a heck of a – I think he's a really, really, really good 2, and with a healthy lineup, a heck of a 3. But – I really believe that he's a 2. I don't think he's an ace, but he's been thrown in that ace position, and I think he's been doing a pretty good job.
Oh, yeah. No, absolutely. I'm not denying that at all. Oh, yeah. So rotation to be him, Boyd, and who's the other one that I'm forgetting? Lively. So him, Boyd, and Lively are definitely the 3 that are going to get rearing and ready to go in a best of 5 ALDS series. And again, we'll sort of preview who they happen to play here in just a minute. But, I mean, when you go ahead and you take a look, all the starting lineup needs to do, man, get 5 innings, 6 if you can. But as soon as that starting pitcher starts to struggle, or as soon as there's a blow-up start, I think Vogt is going to want to take him out, because you look at all the names that we just rattled off there for that bullpen that have been spectacular. And I know against Sobrowski and Walters, we'll see how they do, especially being younger guys that are now being thrown into a playoff scenario. They've done really well for the latter part of this regular season. Clase is the best closer, if not best pitcher in baseball. And Austin Hedges would tell you through this amount of innings, he's the best pitcher ever. He said that on the Chris Rose rotation, I do believe. But, I mean, you got Gaddis, you got Smith, you got Heron, you got lots of other names that are back there in this bullpen. Feel really confident if you can have a lead through 5, 6, maybe even 7. I probably wouldn't ask that from the starters. But, I mean, and this bullpen has gotten a lot of work this year with very little injuries, which has been, I think a lot of people will say very, very lucky. But the fact is you got all these great bullpen arms. You can afford to, like, one game go out and use Smith and Gaddis and Heron, and the next game, well, you can just throw in Walters and Sobrowski right there. Like, it doesn't really matter. Clase can come in and close out any game. He's going to be ready to pitch every single day. If you can get a lead and then give it to this bullpen, it's going to be really hard to beat Cleveland. Bullpens win in October.
100%. But I think a real key that it comes down to is the offense, which, I mean, if you're all good to, I think we should jump to the offense.
Yeah, so batting lineup that I'm going to go ahead and sort of just run through here. I'll run through the 9 guys that I think we'll probably see in game 1. If not, I'm just going to list off all 13 guys, but I'll list my starting lineup there as well. Steven Kwan at number 1 is an absolute. Actually, I won't even list my lineup yet. Let's just go through things. So let's start with that outfield, right? Starting outfield is Steven Kwan. Absolutely.
Obviously. He's a lock and left.
Absolutely. Lane Thomas, because he's started to really, really come alive. And again, you need a guy that's going to come in and in a lefty heavy lineup, a guy that's going to come in and be able to beat left-handed pitching. I mean, again, that's the point I keep hammering home about Lane Thomas. You got him there as well. And then this is where it honestly gets really, really hard. This is where it gets really hard. So
for me, I think I have my lock, but you go ahead.
For me, I'm going to throw in one name that I have a lock right now, and it's John Kenzie Noel. And it's not for his fielding. It's for the power that he possesses with his bat. I know a lot of people may look at me and think, Nate, what? That's crazy.
God, no.
When you look at what wins in October, the bullpen wins in October, and so do home runs. And yes, John Kenzie has cooled way off. Like, he was putting up, some people were saying Aaron Judge-like numbers, to which I said, okay, slow your roll a little bit. I love Big Christmas, but come on, Aaron Judge? No. He has cooled off a lot, but the potential for the power bat is there. Maybe you don't play him in the field because of that defensive liability, but I mean, you could also see him play the field. I don't really know if I'm too confident in a guy like Brennan or Thomas to go out there and play a good defensive outfield. About Brennan, I'm not too sure.
A defensive outfield?
Maybe I'm thinking of Freeman.
You have to be thinking of Freeman. I mean, Will Brennan, he's a Gold Glove
I'll be
candidate.
honest, man. I'm not sold on either of them, but the other outfielder I would have here, for me, it's between Brennan and you're gonna surprise me here. or I'm going to surprise you again. I think just because of the power bat, John Kenzie has to be on this playoff roster. For me, that last outfield spot, I'm not thinking about Tyler Freeman. Sorry, I'm just not. I'm thinking about Brennan or Straw. Sue me. I'm thinking about Straw. But I just for the thing, you have to think about Straw for the veteran presence and the defense that he brings. You have
a lot of
it.
veteran presence on that team. Jimenez is older. Jose's there. Naylor's there. I really don't think you need that much veteran
Which is
presence.
why that's not the reason I'm going with Brennan, though. I'm going with Brennan because of what he gives you with the bat. Miles Straw 100% is a better fielder than Will Brennan. And again, unlike you, I'm not super confident in putting Brennan out there to be a defensive fielder, but I do like him more than Miles Straw for what the overall package brings, because I'm sitting here making him sound like he's a terrible outfielder. He's not. I mean, obviously, John Kenzie is a worse outfielder than Will Brennan is, but I'm throwing Chill Will onto this playoff roster.
So yeah, this is where I stand at it. Obviously, Quan's in left lane, Thomas is in center because he's just been on absolute fire since you got him. So those aren't a question. I think right field's obviously where it comes down to it, and I think it's between Will Brennan a guy nobody's talking about, Daniel Schneemann. I think it comes down to Schneemann too. I don't think it will. I think Schneemann will definitely be a bench guy and see little to no time in the playoffs just because he's obviously a younger guy. But I think it's Will Brennan.
What I have to say later.
Will Brennan, he went to the playoffs with you in 2022. So there's your veteran presence if you really want veteran presence. But
I don't consider Will Brennan a veteran presence. That would be Miles Straw. But a guy with playoff experience, and he's come through. I mean, go remember that Yankee series 2 years ago. He came through in some big moments.
Right, and he has a bat. He has a solid bat. We've seen it. He can hit the long ball.
264 this year. Yeah,
he's done it better. And you have to be thinking of Freeman because Will Brennan is a borderline Gold Glover. I don't think. No,
I probably am thinking of Freeman, but to call Will Brennan a Gold Glover, I think is absurd. I don't think he is, but he's
close. He's really good. If you look at his numbers out, and he's a really good defensively. But
I'd love to see the numbers actually.
Even if you take that away from Will Brennan, to be honest, I think I trust myself more in right field defensively than John Kenzie Noel. I think just if a ball,
you're not wrong about that. Again, the reason he's on the playoff roster,
right? And that's what the designated hitter spots for. If you DH John Kenzie for the power, I have no clue where you're going to put David Fry at, and that's another point that we'll get to when we talk about the infield. But you cannot play John Kenzie Noel out in right field. If a ball So here's my question to you. Are you confident with John Kenzie in right field if a ball is hit to him with a runner on third in a one-run game or a runner on second?
If it's hit to him, yes, because I think John Kenzie's arm is good.
To make a play on it. If he has to run and make a catch.
If he's got to run and track it down, I mean, it depends on the situation in the game. Am I confident in his ability to go make a sliding catch and chase it down? I mean, no, I don't really expect that out of any right fielder, honestly. Let that thing bounce off the wall and make a good throw to your cutoff man. But, I mean, if you're talking about if I'd rather have him or Will Brennan in right field, I'm obviously going to say Will Brennan because he's just more speedy. He is a better defense. He is a better defensive player than John Kenzie. But you have to have John Kenzie on this roster for that power. And we got to move on to the infield now because I know you got places to be. So infield, I mean, third base is easy. Jose Obviously. Ramirez. Right. First base is easy. It's second, and even second base is easy. I think it's Andres Jimenez that should be your starter because of what he provides defensively. I know he gets a ton of hate, and he's got a lot of haters. Brian Arocchio is your starting shortstop.
100%. Yeah. He's been great defensively all season. Shortstop. His bat struggled a little bit, but it's good enough to hang in there, and it's better than any other option you have. I think it's better than Schneemann's bat. I think it's better than Freeman's bat. So it's obviously going to be Arocchio.
And then easy catcher, too, it's Bo Naylor, with Austin Hedges being the first guy I'll mention off that bench.
So I think it depends on the game. I think maybe
and it might depend who's pitching as well.
For sure. I think game one, it'll be Naylor, but you might see maybe Boyd wants a veteran behind the plate and go Hedges. I think Bo Naylor and Hedges, I think they split time equally. I think depending on how many games, maybe Hedges goes 3 if it goes to a 5-game series. just
Yeah,
because Hedges is better
Naylor's
defensively
played
and he makes
this
the
year
pitchers better.
overall. This year overall, Naylor's played 123 and Hedges has played 66. And obviously, we know Austin Hedges has little to no bat, and Bo Naylor's offensive stats are going to look a whole lot better. And again, you have to play Bo Naylor at catcher for the same reason that you might have to play John Kenzie in right field. It's because of that power. He has 13 home runs this season. So that's something that you got to look forward to. But then on the bench to sort of be a utility guy. So what do we have here? We got our 4 outfielders.
Fry,
so I'm just listing off.
Schneemann.
So 4 outfielders, 5 infielders. We're down to 9. Hedges is 10. Fry is number 11 for me. I got David Fry in there as well. To sort of be a utility guy there and a guy that can really play all traits. But I also going to surprise you a little bit here potentially as well. Before I give a spot to Schneemann, I'm going to give a spot. Where's his name? Oh, I'm going to give a spot to, okay, well, first off, I should actually backtrack here. I kind of spoiled what I was going to say a little bit. So you have David Fry in there at 11 as well, being a utility guy. That one's obvious. Kyle Manzardo's got to be there. He's number 12.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, Kyle Manzardo's got to be there for number 12. And I think you and I are in agreement on all 12 of those. So your 13th spot on the infield, who are you giving it to?
Did we already say Schneemann?
Nope.
Then it's going to be Schneemann. Daniel Schneemann.
It's not for me. It's Angel Martinez.
Wow, really?
For me, it's Angel Martinez. And I know that you can play both in the outfield and in the infield. I just feel like Martinez probably has bigger potential with that bat. And I think he's been a little bit better than Schneemann down the stretch. And I think it has been more of a utility guy than Schneemann this year. If you want a true utility guy on that bench, Martinez has played every position in the outfield. He's played third base and second base in the infield. So if you want to give Hosey a break, which they won't, by the way, but I mean, you have the sort of emergency infielder in there. If you want to play him in right field, I wouldn't recommend it, but I guess you can. And it's another guy that, especially if Steven Vogt wants to come in and play in a pinch hit scenario, I like Angel Martinez a little bit better than Daniel Schneemann. I like him a little bit better, and the batting average would back me up on that as well.
An interesting point with the utility guy. I mean, Schneemann's played everywhere but first and catcher. He's played third, second, short, and everywhere in the outfield. So, I mean, if you want to, I think Schneemann, completely flip-flop what you said. I think Schneemann's the ultimate utility guy. Yeah, Angel can play everywhere else, but I think they're going to keep Schneemann on the roster. He's quick around the base.
It wouldn't surprise me either way. I would just prefer Angel Martinez over Daniel Schneemann. That's just what I personally would prefer.
Right. And Schneemann's older, so I think he is going to get obviously, I don't think they're going to make a call up now necessarily, but I think they keep Schneemann on for kind of the straw reason. I think he's an older guy,
Martinez
not
has
older,
Martinez has the better batting average, but Schneemann has the better slugging and on base, which makes him have the better OPS. When you take a look at everything else, comparing those two, total bases, Schneemann wins it by quite a bit because I think he's played in more games.
Yep.
Yeah, he's played in 73 and Martinez has played in 43. So you sort of got to project a lot of the stats out, but the one stat that you're looking at right here is they're only 8 hits apart. Martinez has hit 7 doubles to Schneemann's 10. Martinez does have 3 home runs to Schneemann's 5. He's got 11 RBIs to Schneemann's 22, which I don't think projects out evenly with Schneemann, but most of the other numbers that I said do project farther outward. Total bases project farther outward. I mean, you can't argue with Schneemann's strikeout to walk ratio. It's even projecting outward going to be better than what Angel Martinez has had. I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised either way if they go with Schneemann or Martinez.
Yeah.
If it were me personally making the decision, I would go with Angel Martinez. Just because of the batting average. And I think when you look at a young player like Angel Martinez, who I think has a little bit more potential than Daniel Schneemann, if you're an opposing pitcher, you might quiver a little bit more in a pinch hit scenario with Angel Martinez at the plate.
So I think it's going to be Schneemann, just to the fact that if you need a pinch runner, it's going to be Schneemann. And that's where I really think. And if you need him to kind of plug in anywhere to pinch hit or say you pinch hit Manzardo for Will Brennan, you don't want Manzardo to play the field, you go with Schneemann. Just a guy you can plug in anywhere, and I think he's your best pinch running option because if you need a pinch runner, you're going with Schneemann. You're not going with Angel Martinez, who, in my opinion, was the absolute worst base runner I've seen in my entire life down when he was in Akron. So I think for that reason, you're going to go with Schneemann.
Yeah, again, if you want someone there that's on the base pass that can steal, I mean, not to disprove your point, they both have 3 stolen bases on the season this year. So it statistically wouldn't really matter one way or the other who you put on base there. But I mean, they got people that can go steal bases. I mean, Jimenez and Ramirez are the 2 guys that can go steal. But even when they're not stealing bases, this is the team that runs the bases as a whole really, really well. So, definitely not too worried about that aspect at all. But now we got to answer the big question here. Before we give our World Series predictions and before you have to go here, sir, who would the Guardians rather face? You got the Astros or the Tigers? And I know this sounds like a very stupid question, but you have to take into account what wins in baseball. The long ball wins in baseball. The bullpen wins in baseball. But it also matters how hot you are. And the Tigers are the hottest team in baseball right now. I think it's not necessarily a bad matchup for the Guardians either way, but I think it's a scary matchup either way. I think the Astros are scarier given what we know about the Houston Astros, and they've been in this position for so many years prior. And besides Tariq Skubal, I mean, they do have some really good guys in the back end of that bullpen in Detroit, and obviously a guy we just touched on and talked about with Erie pretty much all season long in Jackson Joby has now made that jump to the major leagues. That lineup doesn't really scare me. And especially if I'm Cleveland's bullpen, I think you can come and shut that down if you have the lead. Cleveland has the lineup advantage over Detroit. And as much as I hate to say it, I don't think they have the advantage anywhere besides the bullpen when you go play Houston.
I mean, I want Detroit all day. Not to like,
and you've seen them more too. You've seen them
not to discredit Detroit, but I mean, yeah, you've seen them both. Bobby has better numbers. Houston's kind of owned us in the past, and I think the same thing you're going to see out of them is with Baltimore. I think they're just a really young team that's not able to do anything. I know a lot of people thought Baltimore was going to go on a run last year, but I kind of saw right through them. Like they were pretty young and they ran into a good competitor, and that was kind of it for them. I think it's going to be the same thing with Detroit. I don't think they're going to make it to us because I definitely think Houston's going to win that series. Maybe
I'm rooting for him though. I'm really
maybe
rooting
in
for
2, could go 3, but I don't see a world where it does. I think Houston takes it in 2.
I think it will go 3 because I think Detroit. Okay, look, and especially if Detroit. First of all, it's going to be Skubal versus Framber Valdez in that first game there, which I mean that is such a great pitching matchup. But Skubal, man, probably going to win the AL Cy Young this year if he's able to steal some momentum and Detroit's able to get on a roll there, steal game 1 in Houston in a 3-game set. All you got to do is win one more. And if you're the hottest team in baseball, well, that's all you've done. They have like a 32-12 record since the month of August. They've been insane.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, Scubal's obviously going to be tough to take down, but I don't know. You got a lot of veteran bats on that Astros team. I don't think the young Skubal is going to be able to. I don't think Scubal's or especially that bullpen and Joby are going to be able to keep up with guys like Kyle Tucker and Jose Altuve. So I'm going to go with Houston.
I'm going to agree with you. I'm going to go with Houston, but I am going to pick Houston in 3 because I do think just the way that Detroit is playing baseball right now, they will be able to get 1. Danger spot for the Braves right now. They're up 1-0, but Mets have 2 on, runners on first and second, top of the 5th, nobody out. So if anything changes, I'll keep you updated. But we are closing our show out a little bit here. Let's stick in the AL though, huh? Royals and O's, the Birds and Royalty. I think this is going to be a very fascinating series. Both of these teams have struggled down the stretch. They haven't looked good. The Orioles got playoff experience. This is really the first time Bobby Witt has seen playoff action. But the big question about this series is, I mean, you got to love your shortstop matchup in this series, huh? Gunnar Henderson and Bobby Witt Jr. Oh, my goodness. It doesn't get much better than that. 2 rotations that have a lot of pieces in them. I mean, it's going to be Burns versus Reagans in this first game there. I mean, the Royals made a ton of moves, and I know Vinny Pasquantino is out right now, and he might not play in this series at all. These are 2 teams that have really struggled, 2 teams I think that could be pretty evenly matched at the end of the day. But I mean, the team that has more raw talent, the better lineup top to bottom is Baltimore. They have the better rotation. I don't know if they necessarily have the better bullpen, but I think the bats will get it done for Baltimore and they'll go play the Yanks.
Yeah. I mean, to keep it short, I just think Baltimore obviously more obviously veteran presence this year compared to KC being a pretty young team, and I think they just have more power in that lineup. So I think they're going to hit their way past the KC and go play the Yankees.
Well, we still don't know where the Diamondbacks, Mets, or Braves will end up winding up in this playoff race, but the Diamondbacks or the Mets will be playing the Brewers here. I think if the Mets lose this game, they'll go play the Brewers. If they win, they'll go play the Padres while the D-backs play the Brewers. And, of course, if the Braves win here, they are going to go play the San Diego Padres. No matter who the Padres play, I do like the Padres to come out of that series. I also like the Brewers to come out of their series, no matter who they play as well. I do think, though, if it is the Diamondbacks, that's a wild card rematch from last year, and I'd watch out for the Snakes, but I think the Brewers and Padres will both proceed there to the NLDS, mind you.
Yeah, 100%. I agree with you.
So let's go ahead and just move forward now. ALCS, my friend. Who's it going to be? Who are the two teams out of the AL?
I'm going with the Yankees. Obviously, I know I'm kind of contradicting myself when I say this here, but I mean, Baltimore's a really young team. They're obviously older than KC, but I'm gonna go with the Yankees. They're the powerhouse of the AL. So
that's what I'm going with too.
Gonna go with there. I think Baltimore's
Judge
still too young
and
to go on
Soto
a
and
run.
Stanton, and you got that pitching rotation. Them
100%.
as well. And as much as I want to have faith in the Guardians, and I think the Guardians can do it, I think they run into the Astros, and I think the Astros just get them again.
So I think the series is going to go 100%. I think obviously Altuve and Tucker, they're going to do what they do, and that's rake against guys like Lively and Williams who don't have much experience. And I know Bibee doesn't have playoff experience either, but I don't know. There's something about this team. I think Naylor is going to explode, and he's obviously going to turn into the freak that he is. So I'm going to go Guardians in 5. I know it's probably the fan in me, but I'm going to go Guardians in 5.
And maybe the pessimist in me and the sort of like, okay, when is this thing going to cool down here? It has cooled down in the second half for the Guardians, but again, I might be changing my pick here. I don't think so. Again, if it's Detroit, I think the Guardians go play the Yankees in the ALCS. If it's Houston, I don't think it's going to look too good for the Cleveland Guardians. This is a team that's got a pretty solid lineup. They have an okay pitching rotation. The bullpen is what really wins this thing. So you have to think, are you confident in the lineup's ability to be able to beat Houston pitching on a consistent basis, to be able to give you leads going into late game scenarios? And against Houston's lineup and against Houston's rotation, I don't really think that the Cleveland rotation is going to have it. I don't really think the Cleveland lineup is going to have everything that they need. And Houston, I mean, they've been in this situation more times than we can care to count. And the playoff experience is going to shine through in that moment there as well. So Houston Yankees is my ALCS. On the other side, though, the NLCS, I'm going with the wild card team, the Padres. There's always one wild card team that makes a run. I think it's going to be the Padres this season. The Padres, I do believe, would go on to play. I think they would play the Dodgers, wouldn't they? No, they'd play the Phillies. They would play the Phillies.
Ooh, yeah.
They would play the Phillies. But I'll tell you right now, Padres are in the World Series for me. There's always one team that makes a run from the wild card. And this year, I think it's the Padres. I think it's the Padres that do it.
Yeah, I'm gonna keep mine short. I think the Phillies, they're just Red October again. I have them in my World Series, so I'm gonna take them, and I don't really see the Brewers beating the Dodgers. So I'm gonna go Phillies Dodgers NLCS.
Mine is Padres Dodgers, and I think Padres making the World Series.
I'm gonna go Phillies, obviously. I think Harper in October is just a different animal, so I'm gonna go with the Phillies.
So then my World Series pick over on the AL side of things, I'm going to go with the Yankees, man. And I'm picking the Yankees to win it all this year. I feel like it's their year.
Unfortunately, they'll kind of own us till the end of time. So this is where the Guardians run kind of stops. And the ALCS with this just young team is just a great accomplishment. If in my personal belief, that's what's going to happen. But I think the Yankees are going to take kind of beat us 4-1. I think we might sneak a game in there, but I think the Yankees are going to end it in 5. So
So I know you got to be somewhere, and we're going to end our show here. If there are any questions from the chat, go ahead and pop them up. But I'll ask you this one question here first. Neither of us are predicting a Guardians World Series win. What does this team have to do to go hang up the pennant to get to the World Series, even let alone win the thing, and then eventually walk away with the World Series title? This team has been so close so many times, 95, 97, 2016. Yeah. They got to do it.
I think it's the starting pitching. It's been the question mark all year. I think it's going to be the question mark now. It's can Bybee, Williams, Cantillo, the young guys kind of hang in there, and can Boyd and Lively kind of save us? So.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I think it's the rotation that has to set this whole thing up, give this bullpen a lead. This lineup will have to give the bullpen a lead. They're going to have to solve a lot of really tough pitching this season, and sometimes it just hasn't gone the way of the Guardians this year. Now, there are some moments where they get hot, some moments where they play really well, but in order for the Guardians to win a World Series, you have to get consistent, good pitching, a blow-up start here and there, probably. Actually, I'm going to say avoid blowout starts in general. They just can't happen. It's going to lose confidence in the team. It's going to utilize the bullpen a whole lot more than you want to utilize it. And especially if you have a blow-up start where a starting pitcher is going in and giving up 4, 5, 6 runs, especially against some of the top pitchers in Major League Baseball, I don't know that this Guardians lineup will be able to have it in them. This lineup has to find some pop, though, and they got to get contribution from everyone down the order. We know Jose and how he performs in the playoffs. He's going to perform. Naylor's been good this year, and I think he'll perform in the playoffs as well. I think Stephen Kwan will get back on track. Lane Thomas, Kyle Manzardo, the top half, maybe even top 2/3 of the lineup, everywhere from Kwan at first to Manzardo, the Ramirez, Naylor, then Thomas, and even Andres Jimenez, I think are going to come through offensively. It's that back half of the rotation. Can John Kenzie Noel get that power back? Is Bo Naylor going to find some pop? What about Brian Rocchio? Maybe this chill will come through in some moments. You have some pinch hitting. Can Austin Hedges lay down a bunt that drives in some runs? Can Angel Martinez find something? Is David Fry going to come into some big pinch hit spots and hit some really, really just nukes? Quite frankly, I think that's what you're going to want him to come in and do. But a lot of questions for Cleveland. A lot of questions.
For sure.
All right. Anything from the chat here today, or has it been pretty quiet?
Pretty quiet over. So
pretty quiet. What did we get up to today, sir?
40. So
okay.
Solid
show. Not too bad. Hey, tune in next week, because next week we'll be going through our MVPs, our Cy Youngs, and literally everything else to do with minor league baseball.
Season, awards for minor league.
End of season awards. And I mean, as long as the Guardians are in the playoffs, we'll have guard ball to talk about. So that'll continue there on the week. Hey, playoffs for the Guardians start on Saturday as they await the winner of the Astros and Tigers. I'm rooting for the Tigers, not only because it's a really good story, but because the Guardians would make the CS because of it, because I don't think Detroit would beat the Guardians in a 5-game series. That one starts on Saturday, and I think would end the next Saturday, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, Game 5 would be that next Saturday. So, on Monday, we'll be able to talk about the rest of the Guardians series, and then the next Monday, hopefully we have a championship series to talk about. So
hopefully.
All right, my man. I know you got a soccer game to get to, and I've kept you a little late, so you go for it. Thank you everyone for tuning in. Again, you can find us literally on pretty much any social media platform. YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, those are the 3.
All of it. Yep.
Yeah, all of it. Hey, maybe we'll be back to sort of regular time, but plan for around this time again next week. We'll again talk guard ball, end of season awards, give you your AAA All-Stars as well, because we couldn't do that today because they're not out yet. And knowing our luck, they'll probably come out after we hit end stream. So, David, anything 100%. Else to say? I'll let you close it out.
Thanks everybody for watching. Same time next week, and go Guards.
Go Guards, baby. It's guard ball time.